So far in my Soldering Basics series, I've discussed enough basics about soldering for you to get started practicing. In this video, what I'll be discussing is a bit more advanced, but it is some of the basics for soldering surface mount components without a reflow oven. Since surface mount components are so small, it helps to have some tweezers to put them in place. If you've watched my other videos in this series, then you already know that flux is helpful for good soldering. While holding the part in place with the tweezers, add solder to one side of the part. The soldering iron already has a bit of solder on the tip. Now that one side of the part is soldered down, you don't need to hold it with the tweezers anymore. You can go ahead and add solder to the other side. This works, but using my non-dominant hand to hold the tweezers while I solder can get a bit shaky when I do a lot of these. I have found that by putting a bit of blue tack on the board, you can use that to hold the part in place while you solder the first side. After removing the blue tack, the part is secure enough to solder the other end. I want to show something to watch for when mounting these small parts. After repositioning the parts and cleaning up the flux residue, we can zoom in and take a closer look. For these three components, I've outlined the copper pads underneath. The part on the left was factory installed. I didn't do anything with that one. The one on the right is aligned on the copper pads pretty well. The one in the middle is a bit misaligned, but it should still work. Keep in mind that even though it should work, there is still a chance that it doesn't, so try to position them better than this. So far, I've only shown demonstrations using regular flux and solder. Now let's demonstrate a bit with solder paste, which is solder and flux pre-mixed together into a paste. Keep in mind that this paste does dry out if you don't use it soon enough. Here I'm soldering some LEDs to a board. I add a bit of solder paste to two of the copper pads for each LED. When I put the LEDs on the board, the solder paste will hold them in position while I melt the solder paste. This only works to hold the larger components, because the smaller ones will more likely stick to the soldering iron. To speed up the process of melting the solder paste, I have a bit of solder on the soldering iron. With the LEDs soldered halfway, I use flux and regular solder on the remaining connections. The flux that I'm using here is a no-clean flux, which means that it does not leave any residue that needs to be cleaned off. This flux is also a liquid inside of a flux pen, rather than the paste flux that I've used previously. Now let's take a look at one more method of holding the tiny surface mount components in place. You may not be able to do this as often, but it is handy to know about. I have a string tied securely to a screw, and it's going across the board to another screw. At the second screw, the string is not tied, but it is wrapped around the screw. This way I can easily loosen it when needed, then pull the string to make it tight again. I slide the circuit board under the string, then position the part also under the string. Now I can pull the string tight to hold everything. With the string holding it down, I could solder it like I did earlier with flux and solder, but since I already have the solder paste handy, I add a bit. You can see that when using solder paste with the soldering iron like I did here, you're left with a bit of residue to clean off, so keep that in mind. That's all I have for now about soldering surface mount components. If you have any tips or suggestions, I would love to hear them. Please leave a comment and share your ideas. Thank you for watching.